Hello, everyone. So nice to see you all. This is one of my very first live streams ever. I don't think I ever go live on YouTube. I don't think I ever have. I go live on Instagram. I do a couple different live locations in different spots on the socials, but I wanted to come on here and have a chat with you guys. So we'll take a look and see who's coming in. Hi. So, Becca, oh my goodness, thanks for the instigation. You're a bad influence. I'm going live for the first time. So, I'm coming on here. This is my practice day. This is the first time I'm ever going live on YouTube. And I want to talk about the podcast, everything, anything about the podcast. So, if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the chat. As people come in, I'll chat about anything your heart desires, everything to do with the podcast. So, Becca, I'd love to chat with you a little bit. Thank you for popping in. I don't know if you can stay the whole time. I'm going to be here for about, 15, 30 minutes, depending if people come by and there's questions. And I just thought it would be really fun, you guys, if Tuesday evening after the podcast airs at 1 p.m., if we hop on here and have a chat and talk about past podcasts, upcoming podcasts, today's podcast, that kind of thing. And today's an interesting day because it's been a week or two with no podcast, and that's okay. But I have been really ill after QuiltCon. I came home and I had some kind of horrible, I don't know what it was, but it took me out for a whole week. And then the next week I went away on a really cool trip. It was last week actually, to Huntsville, Alabama. So I had a lot of fun with that. I was judging and I did a lecture and I did some tours of the quilt show. So that was really fun. So I'm going to just practice today with this live. I'm going to chat a little bit about um, the podcast. And I'm going to start by really encouraging you, if you're watching this or if you're watching the replay, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I have so many wonderful followers on the podcast. Hi there, Saskatchewan. Come on in. I have so many wonderful followers on the podcast. I get a minimum of about 5,000 downloads a week. But those guys who are listening in to the podcast are not necessarily following me yet on YouTube. And there's so much fun to come on YouTube. We're going to be talking all about the podcast every Tuesday night, unless I'm traveling. If I'm in Japan, I'm not going to be doing a live. If I'm in Australia, I'm not going to be doing a live. And those big trips are coming up. But if I'm at home and I'm here, I'm going to hop on at 5 o'clock every Tuesday night after the podcast airs, and we'll talk all about it. Hi, Mona. So let's just start off by sort of doing a sample day today. This is the first time I'm doing this live, and I think it'll be so fun. Hi, Shauna, South Carolina, welcome. I'm here talking about the podcast today, and some of you might be thinking, oh my goodness, there hasn't been a podcast in a couple weeks. That is true. It's absolutely true. But like I said a little bit earlier, I was really sick after QuiltCon. I traveled. I had a huge gig in Huntsville, Alabama, which was so fun, but that was an entire week, and it was all across the other side of North America. But I'm back now. So I'm back in my seat, and the next 3 weeks I'm at home. So I will be putting a couple podcasts up a week. I have Kate from the Last Homely House coming up, who is an amazing guest. I really enjoyed hers. I have Amy Barrickman, who has the most cool products for getting your clothes all quilty. That's really going to be fun. I still have a QuiltCon recap episode to go up. That one will be short and sweet because I ran around at QuiltCon and did all kinds of fun things, but I didn't really to get tons of content. I think that'll be maybe a 15, 20-minute episode. If you guys have any questions while you're here about the podcast, you can pop in the chat. What was your favorite guest of the past? Who you wish that I could have coming up, because I'm always on the lookout for new guests. I have about 150 guests on my dream wish podcast guest list, if you can imagine that many. But I get a lot of recommendations from followers and listeners, and I jot all those down. I get them on my list. Sometimes I get notes saying, you're not bringing the person I want. Sometimes they're not available. Sometimes I've reached out. Sometimes I just haven't gotten to them yet. but there's so many wonderful things coming up. So pop something in the chat if you have a wish of who you'd like to have on the podcast. If you have listened in the past and you have a favorite guest that you've loved the most, mention that in the podcast. I mean, in the chat as well. I'm going to pull up some stats as well, I think, about the podcast. I'll just tell you my number one most listened to podcast ever was Tula Pink. And of course, that was 2 episodes. So one of her episodes got about 12,000 listeners, and the second episode got about 8,000. So I'm not sure why the second one was a little bit less, but the first one just keeps growing and growing every week still. So it's kind of exciting. That was a really fun one. So we've talked about who's coming up. We've got a few really great ones coming up. The QuiltCon episode, like I said, Amy Barrickman has this really cool product to put quilty stuff on your clothing. Kate from the Last Homely House. This is a really good episode coming up. Kate is in the UK in the middle of nowhere. Like, she talks about being quite remote, and she has this adorable little homestead, and she does gardening and quilting and stitching and all kinds of crafts and things, and she just does what she wishes as she desires, and it's the most just heartwarming channel. So yeah, if you haven't seen Kate from the Last Homely House, check her out on YouTube. She's got a bajillion list of followers, just like Becca here. I think Becca here's got almost like 30,000 followers on YouTube, so you want to make sure you're checking out So Becca as well. So Becca in the chat here is one of my sort of mentors on YouTube. She's encouraging me to go live. She's encouraging me to do more posts. It's intimidating to me. I've got it so nailed with the podcast, but when it comes to YouTube, I'm a newbie. So I'm having some fun figuring it out. And I can't even believe I'm actually live right now. I'm really excited. I've done it, Becca. I figured it out. And I even scheduled it in a little bit in advance. And then 5 o'clock rolled around and I was like, okay, it's not happening. It's not opening up. I had to figure out how to click on it. But I got my webcam all set up and I'm happy that it's working out. So I'm going to go back to my little list of things I wanted to chat about. Please just put something in the chat if you have a question. I want to remind you again, if you're in the chat or you're listening or reading, not, I guess you wouldn't be reading this. If you're watching this or listening to this later as the replay, be sure to subscribe, because then you'll get the notifications of when I'm going live. And if you're following me on the socials, you'll get notifications as well. But I think I'm going to give this a try. I like the idea of talking about the podcast after it's aired each week and going live if you guys have any questions. So every Tuesday at 5 o'clock Pacific, I'm going to go live and chat about the latest guest and answer any questions you may have and talk about some of the lessons learned and things like that. So let's talk about the podcast a little bit. So the reason I'm doing this podcast, the reason I created the Quilter on Fire podcast is because way back when, like I think 2013, I started my first podcast, and I was feeling kind of like outside the quilting world. I'm an art quilter, and I was feeling a little bit not left out, but I wasn't finding my people just yet. And I loved quilting, all kinds of quilting and quilters and everything. But I thought, if I'm not finding the exact community I want to be involved with, the people who are going to lift me up and I can be a real strong part of a community, why not create a community of people where I'm interviewing all of these amazing creators and I'm lifting them up and I'm sharing their stories and I'm talking about the wonderful lives they've had and the journeys they've made and different things like that. So I started podcasting way back in 2013 to 2015. Did over 100 episodes way back then. It was called Canadian Quilt Talk. That's not available anymore, but I took many years off when my fire jobs got very busy. And then over the pandemic, I kind of realized, you know what? I think the thing that I miss the most is that connection, that community, and those people that I was surrounding myself with. And I started the podcast again. So I have done about 155 episodes since I started the Quilter on Fire podcast up again in December, a couple years ago anyway. And the guests have been incredible. And I'm not just talking about the real famous people like Tula Pink, Kay Fassett, Ricky Timms and Alex Anderson, all these wonderful people I have had that are just huge in the quilting world. I've also had, people who are not famous, who have the best little stories. And so, I want to make sure that you're taking a look through that file, the whole history of those podcasts, and you're finding some of the ones you love, and you're not missing out on some of those great ones in the past. So if there's ever a week like last week or this week where I haven't posted a podcast, be sure to go check out the past and find someone else that you love. And there's so many wonderful topics. I'm sure you'll love all kinds. So, talking about some of the statistics, some of my most listened to episodes, or like I said, Tula Pink, Cave Facet, Mel Beach was a big one. She's a modern quilter. She's always right up there. Michael from Quilt Folk magazine was a huge one as well. Laura Kemshaw, she's an incredible artist from the UK. She was a really well listened to podcast. And more recently, I just had Kimber Bell. She was very well listened to. She's got a really cool niche going on out there where she does embroidery and quilting together. She's got a huge business and she's just been running it so well. She's got a massive team and they're just bringing all kinds of exciting stuff to the world. Some of the other ones that have been really big, Amy Butler. Like, oh my goodness, you guys, Amy Butler is one of the most iconic fabric designers of our time. I'm telling you, like 2 decades ago, I was starting to get interested in what she was doing. And I remember the first moment I saw her fabric for the first time, where I was standing in what store, and to come kind of full circle all these years loving her fabric and quilting with her fabric. I think I've made beach blankets for every woman in my family out of Amy Butler fabric. And I tell on the podcast a fun story about how I spotted some Amy Butler fabric on Facebook. And it was in the Facebook marketplace. And I was like, that moment where you're like, get the car, get the car. I literally drove 30 minutes straight to get this 5-inch square bundle of fabric for $5. And I said to the woman at her doorstep, are you sure you want to sell this to me for $5? This has some great value. This is kind of iconic. And she's like, take it before I change my mind. So I made that into a lovely little table topper and had so much fun with that. So I have had some wonderful guests. Please throw a question if you have any questions about podcasting, anything to do with the podcast. Who do you suggest that I have on the podcast? I see where some of you guys are from: South Carolina, Saskatchewan. If you're wondering where I'm from, I'm in Summerland, BC, Canada. But I travel all over North America teaching, speaking, and judging. And I have a few international gigs this year I'm really excited about. I'm going right away to Australia on April 6th to 20th. And I will be speaking at the Australasian Quilt Convention. So excited to be doing my lecture there. The reason I'm so excited, I mean, I love quilt shows in the first place, but I'm very excited because my son is living in Melbourne for a year and I get to see him. I haven't seen him since he left in December, and I'm so excited. We have all kinds of fun plans after the show. And then the other big one is Japan. There are still a couple spots left in my Japan trip, and that is in May. And that's another big international trip I have coming up this year. So that's going to be super fun. So we are about halfway in. I'm just really practicing. I'm so glad that you guys are here. Thank you for humoring me today. I'm trying to figure this live thing out. I'm going to try to do this every Tuesday, like I said. But let's take a look at who's coming up on the podcast. I've got some really cool things coming up. I've got, let's see. We just had Shannon Brinkley. That was a big one too. So don't miss that. There's going to be a QuiltCon episode coming up, which will be short and sweet. Hi, baby. You want to come say hi to everybody? Here, I'll give you a treat. We're going to let the puppy interrupt us because Daddy's on a bike ride and she is not with him. So she's a little bit disappointed. Hey, you say hello? Did you slobber all over my hand? Anyway, so my husband's on a bike ride and she's kind of like disappointed that she didn't get to go with him. But he does take her on bike rides, but just on the low-key ones. Like, she's a puppy still, only about 2 years old. Hi, Pat. Welcome. So anyway, I was talking about some of the big trips I'm doing this year, and I want to talk about some of the future podcast episodes coming up. So like I said earlier, throw questions in the chat if you have any. And the people who are coming up on the podcast, we have Amy Barrickman coming up We have the QuiltCon episode, like I said, Kate from the last Homely House. We also have Robin Bogert. So she is the person for Bernina International who writes the Bernina blog. And she is amazing at machine information. She's an educator. She's wonderful. Wendy Lou. Oh my goodness, you guys. Wendy Lou is the most adorable YouTuber. She's everything sewing. So it's a bit different than quilting. But yeah, she just, I don't know, she's really unique and honest and, just real. So I love everything about, she's inspired me to make some clothing and things like that. We have Eddie Crest Sewing Furniture. This is the Canadian sewing company. That's really cool. Hello, everybody. Oh, hi, Vanessa. Welcome. Hi, Karen. So we have Wendy Lou coming up. She's incredible. Eddie Crest Sewing Furniture. We're going to talk all about their story. It's a family story. A really exciting one coming up on April 9th because I will be in Australia speaking at the Australasian Quilt Show. So April 9th, I'm airing my episode with Gloria Loftman. And this is really exciting because she's a huge quilt star in Australia, but all over the world. She travels all over the world. She's known for her landscapes. If you've ever seen Gloria Loftman, like she's got this tile background on some of her landscapes that she's iconic for. Let's see who else. I have Fuzzy Mall coming up on the podcast in May. He is really cool. He does these portraits they've been at a couple of the big shows and they've won some big awards already. They're these massive, almost like life-size portraits in different shapes, and that's really cool. We have Carly Porter coming up. She was awesome at QuiltCon. She had this wonderful black and white outfit on. From head to toe, she was black and white, and she had a quilted coat on. Let's take a look at, hi Karen from LA. Wonderful to see you guys. Yeah, Carly was great at QuiltCon. We have So Becca coming up. She's in the chat here. So Becca is slated for June 4th. Wait till you see her YouTube channel. If you're following my channel right now, I recommend that you go over and check out So Becca. She does all kinds of really, really fun stuff, including live quilting. You can just join every Friday and quilt along with her and have some fun. I've got Carolina Moore coming back. She's an inventor of all kinds of cool things. She's got a new ruler that lights up. Like, are we quilting overnight? I don't know, but it's really kind of cool. Irene Blank from Australia is coming up as well. Chris Marchini. He is a famous TikToker. And so he's doing this really cool thing where he gets his followers to send him fabric and he makes community blocks. He has so much fun. This is your first live, Pat? Me too. Me too. This is my first live on YouTube. Let's see who else is in here. We've got Vanessa. Hi, Quilts for Survivors. If you have not listened to the Quilts for Survivors episode, I'm actually going to scroll back and find that episode number for you. Vanessa, Quilts for Survivors. I can't remember the date that I had you on the podcast. It might have actually been back in 2022. Let's see. Oh, it was such a good episode. I learned so much from Vanessa about truth and reconciliation. Her story is a really strong, good story. It's so important to listen to. And if you've ever given a quilt for charity, like Quilts for Survivors, you will get more back in your heart than you ever give. And it's just such an important cause. So let me just scroll back a little bit and see if I can find what her episode was. Episode number 76. So if you're going to listen into the podcast and you need to listen to a past episode because a podcast didn't come out today, go find Vanessa's episode. It's episode 76. The Greenland Quilter is here. Hi, Katie. How are you doing? It's nice to see you. Can you believe I'm live? I've never gone live before on YouTube. But I want to talk to you guys about how to listen to the podcast in case you're coming in here on YouTube. You're used to being on YouTube, but you've never actually listened to a podcast before. There's a couple ways you can listen to a podcast, and it's really easy. So you can go to my website at quilteronfire.com. And you can just click on the Listen and Learn tab. And all you have to do is just scroll through and you can find any episode your heart desires. So if you're thinking, oh, Brandy didn't put one out today, she's been traveling, she's been sick, all that kind of stuff, you can go back and scroll through all past episodes and you can find that. Hi. Oh my gosh. I'm really good. I'm really good. I'm feeling so much better after my illness after QuiltCon. And I've just had a big traveling gig to Huntsville, Alabama. And oh my goodness, did they treat me like a queen? Oh, they were so nice. They spoiled me rotten. I was going into that traveling gig. I was judging and doing walkabouts the show with people. And I did a lecture. And I was thinking to myself as I went there, I'm going to really behave. I'm going to eat really, really well. Katie, did you catch something at QuiltCon too? Oh, so anyway, I was thinking I'm going into that trip. I'm going to behave well and eat really well. Well, they spoiled me so rotten with so many treats. It was really hard, but I really enjoyed myself. It was really, really fun. Okay, so I want you to throw something in the comments if there is a quilter that you suggest that I have on the podcast. I am booked out until July, but I really, really love listening to what my listeners are recommending. So I always look into people and try to have them if I can. So please do put something in there. If you have a question about the process of doing a podcast, if you're thinking of starting your own podcast, there's room for everyone. I'm telling you, like if you can start a podcast at 50 years old, I did it. And we are having a whole lot of fun over on the podcast. So if you have any questions about the process, let me know. Do you think I should go live every Tuesday night after a new podcast airs at 1 p.m.? Should I go live every every Tuesday at 5 o'clock? Let's take a look. I've got a question here. What episode of your podcast is the QuiltCon where you're doing little short interviews during it? So I have two QuiltCon episodes out there from the past. This year, the QuiltCon episode is not even live yet. I haven't put it out yet because I was so sick and I've been traveling. So I've got three episodes that are going to be coming out in the next week or so. I'm going to be smashing them all together because I've missed a couple weeks. And so, yeah, you'll be seeing that come soon. I'm actually putting it out there right away. It's so nice to see you all. I was imagining my first live would be kind of like crickets, but it's no so nice to have all of you guys here. So put a note in the comments if you think this is a good idea. Should I go live every Tuesday? Give me a yes, give me a no, give me whatever you think. What do you suggest? I think it's a lot of fun to talk about the podcast guests. Like I think one of my most common questions is, what was Tula Pink like? Or, any guest. And people will say, what was the guest like when you interviewed them? Were they as nice as they seem, or you know, were they kind of hardcore? I get questions about like different guests to see if they're just the same as they appear in public. So that's kind of cool. Yes to lives. Okay, good, good, good. I will give it a try, and I'm going to schedule these out. So make sure if you're listening or watching right now, or even if you're looking at the replay of this, that you go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm pretty new to YouTube. I've only really been on here since October doing stuff. I mean, I've been on here for years actually, but hardly ever put anything up. So in October, I started in earnest trying to put more stuff. Um, Oh, you're leaving in the morning to drive to Georgia? That's pretty far from Greenland. That's pretty far. You're in Florida now. Okay, I see that. That's great. I just had some friends come back from Florida the other day, and they were in heaven because he is in a wheelchair, and Florida is the place to be if you have a disability and you need accessibility. They went on a boat ride, and it was so accessible that they had a special contraption for him to be able to snorkel. It was awesome. So if you have disabilities, go to Florida. They take care of you down there. But anyway, okay, so I will be going live every Tuesday from now on at the recommendation of Sobecca. She's recommending that I connect with my people live, talk to them, be here in the comments, chatting with you back and forth about the latest podcast. And also, there's other things you can ask as well. Like if you have any questions about entering your first show, or what does a judge want, or anything like that. I have three different lectures that I do. I have my trunk show, of course. I have my studio magnificent lecture. You can see that my studio is not so magnificent right now. It's hard to tell, but it's a little bit messy back there. That's okay. My studio is messy all the time. And also, my third lecture is all about judging. So if you have any questions like about those kind of things, let me know. Oh, thank you so much, Vanessa, for the sweetheart. I'm loving all the little emojis in here. Everybody's given me like little hearts and stuff like that. So thank you for that. That's a lot of fun. I'm not even sure how everything works in here, but it's kind of cool. And I'm taking a step in the right direction. My friend Katie, the Greenland Quilter, she interviewed me on YouTube, and I thought, yeah, I really just got to get on there a little bit better. The So Yeah brothers really encouraged me to be on YouTube. They actually flew me down to visit with them and do some filming with them and have a lot of fun there to launch my YouTube back in October. And so, Becca, mwah, thank you so much for all of your help, encouragement, and just giving me the confidence to go for it. I mean, I think I was just stalling for quite a while, right? So, hi, Elaine. Oh my goodness. Mwah! Elaine Wick Poplin. Elaine is the person who designed the quilt at the recent show I was just at, Fanfare, Huntsville, Huntsville Heritage Quilters of Huntsville. Anyway, Elaine created the quilt that I chose as my judge's choice. I can't even talk about it, Elaine. I can't even talk about it. It was such a heartwarming quilt. It had such a strong topic about gun violence in schools. And oh my goodness, it was just, I posted it on my Instagram. So please go to my Instagram and check it out if you want to see a picture of that quilt. Elaine and I are in front of it hugging. And it was just, it's an amazing, it was so amazing. Hi, baby. Are you ready to go for a walk? I think she is. So we have a few more minutes here before I go. I really appreciate you, Elaine. You did an amazing job. All of your quilts at the show. It was a lot of fun to judge that show. And I got a lot of great feedback from my lecture and the judging. So that was a lot of fun. I think one of the most fun parts is actually doing the walkarounds with the quilts, with the quilters. We did 2 tours. Oh, poor little buddy. She's a little bit upset right now because my husband went for a bike ride without her. And she loves to go for those bike rides. So she's stuck with me in the studio. Hey, hey, little buddy. You want to come up and say hi again? Come here. Come say hello. I'll give you a treat if you come on up here. It's hard to see her because she's so dark. Mwah. But you came up here, so I'll give you a treat. Okay. So I'll show you a quick little glimpse of what I'm working on right now before we go. We've got a few more minutes. I'm just going to show you a little glimpse of what I'm working on. What did you say at the bottom? I missed the walkarounds. Oh, heard they were fantastic. Yeah, they were really fun. Right now, I'm just going to show you a little bit of what I'm working on. It's pretty low key right now. It's only a background. And you can see that this is just fusible fleece. And these fabrics are literally just butted up against each other. There's no seams, there's no piecing, nothing like that. I just made a background. This quilt's going to be 20 by 20. And it's for the NACQJ challenge. So that is the Quilt Judging Organization challenge. And really the theme is just you have to have a yellow circle and a blue circle of certain sizes. And my sort of theme is all about me going through my career as the Quilter on Fire, like coming to the Quilter on Fire from a fire career. I was lost in a sea of blue uniforms for 15 years in my career. And so this is the sea of blue uniforms that you see here. And then you're going to see a circle on there, and there's going to be a small yellow circle with a blue circle behind it, another yellow and blue. And it actually looks like me sort of in a womb. There's sort of like moonlight shapes around, and it's about the layer of protection of myself, the walls I'm putting up to protect myself. And it's about the protection of my family and friends and the books and the knowledge and the counselors and things that I surrounded myself with. And so I'll have this with me every Tuesday for the next couple weeks as I'm finishing it up, because it's all going to be hand stitching. I'm going to go upstairs now and make dinner and watch TV with my mom and stitch on it a bit. But it's going to be 100% hand stitched in between those raw seams. So I'm going to be doing chunky blue hand stitching all over it. I'm going to have big radiating gold stitching all over it to go with the yellow as well. So that's what I'm working on right now. But Anyway, I wanted to say thank you for coming. I'm so excited that so many of you are here. I appreciate you showing up for my first Tuesday night live. I'm going to be doing this every week unless I'm traveling. So keep an eye out for that. Come with your questions. Listen to the latest podcast on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock, and then come to the live at 5 to ask questions about it, talk about it. You can ask questions about the past, questions about the future, and really anything about judging, anything about anything that I'm doing, where I'm traveling, things like that. I've got 19 trips, I think, this year, and I've done almost half of them already in just the first few months. I'm traveling 3 weeks a month until June, and then I have a nice, pretty good summer break, and then I start getting busy again in the fall. So still have some weekends and weeks available if your guild wants something, but I'm having a real fun year saying yes to everything, and I'm having a blast. So anyway, I'm going to say goodbye for now. Let me just scroll to the bottom to see if there's any more questions as we say goodbye. I look forward to seeing it progress. Thank you so much, Elaine. Yeah, I always address personal stories. Vanessa, I'm not going to Quilt Canada this year. It's the same week as Bernini University, so I will be in Detroit, unfortunately. But you always have such an amazing presence there. So if you have a booth, my goodness, I wish you all the best. I hope that you are speaking at Quilt Canada because your story is so important. Everyone listening and watching right now, if you have not checked out Quilts for Survivors, please go check out that website. It is just so heartwarming. It's such a good message. Vanessa has made, what is it, 4,000 quilts in just the last couple of years for Quilts for survivors of residential schools. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Australia too, Judy. Thank you so much. I'm going to be there on the 6th, which actually turns out to be like the 8th because it's like such a ridiculous 15-hour travel thing. And I lose a day. So I will be there about on the 8th, and I'll be there till the 20th, but I will be 5 nights staying at the show. So 4,700 quilts, Vanessa, that is phenomenal. I remember the quote from Vanessa's podcast. She said, it's amazing what you can do when you surround yourself with the volunteers. Like, it's just incredible. So she had an idea, she had a dream, she had a hope, just starting with her family, and it branched out from there to, you know, all of Canada. So congratulations. You're doing a great job, Vanessa. And bye to everybody. I'm going to say goodbye now. I'm going to go make some supper, but thank you for being here, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Take care. Have a super night, everyone. Love you. Bye.